All right, everybody. Sinners is finally out this weekend. A very much anticipated film coming from Ryan Coogler. Very different and very unique for him. This is his fifth film after Fruitvale Station, Creed, and of course, Black Panther 1 and 2. And what makes this so different is the fact that it is an original film. If you think about those other projects, it's based on a true story, part of an IP with the Rocky franchise, and then, of course, a Marvel property. But within all of those, a very diverse group of films, it's always been Michael B. Jordan. And not here we have Michael A. and Michael B. Jordan. Yes, the twins. And that's kind of what we knew about this project going into it for months and months before we saw the first trailer. We know it was twins, vampires, and then also just like a period piece. So, with that in mind, Dan, before maybe the trailers came out and before all this hype that we have seen came in, what were you anticipating with this after you heard about it and after you had seen Ryan Coogler's other projects? Like, how excited were you?
I was definitely excited. I think when we all kind of first heard about the premise, everyone was pretty much on board in terms of it sounded entertaining. I think as time moved along, um, there was some conversation, I guess, later last year about there being some concern around this movie. Like it was screening and people were saying, you know, it was okay or it had problems. I don't know how different what they were seeing then is from what they saw now, but I find that somewhat hard to believe. I think there's been a lot of weird stuff in the media about this movie, but we can get to that later. But I was very excited.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just rumors on Twitter. I've seen the same thing with people talking about that with the Superman movie. They're like, oh, there's test screenings and James Gunn's going down with the ship and all this stuff. I'm like, just wait. That's the thing, man. Just wait. Have you heard, speaking of like superhero, and I hate to like rope this into this conversation because this movie means so much more than that. But I've seen some rumors, and I'm wondering if you knew if this was true or not, that this was a Blade movie that he had pitched kind of at first to Marvel, and they kind of just turned it down, and he turned it into this. Had you seen that anywhere?
I saw people talking about that. I have no idea the validity of that,
Okay.
but um,
I wouldn't be surprised if they turned it down because I mean this definitely seems, I mean he wrote this project too all by himself. This definitely seems like his baby, and that's just something you cannot do at Marvel. You cannot have your sole voice. I mean, obviously he had Black Panther and Wakanda Forever, so he kind of knew the gist of, how much studio interference would be there and what all he could do himself. But I don't know. I feel like at the point of his career, four films down, he wanted maybe a little bit more room to work, and I can see them turning him down. But like you just said, we both don't know if this is true or not. It sounds like a rumor. It sounds like someone made this up, but we'll see.
yeah, and also, I mean, even if it was true, I'm glad that it didn't happen because I just don't think he would have had the level of control that he needed to make this.
Say absolutely. And then a lot of people, I'm sure you've seen these comparisons too. Well, I mean, it's hard not to, and I really think it's cool that it's two black directors, but the fact that this and Nope are, I think are, well, it'll be announced today with the opening weekend box office, but they're like the two highest grossing original films since the pandemic started. I think Nope had an opening weekend of 35 million. And I think this is going to be, I really hope that it's going to be over 50 million. But the budget between the two is pretty interesting. I just looked up Nope's budget. It was 70 million. And I know this one is bordering on 90 to $100 million. What do you think about that? Do you think it's too much? Do you think it's too little? There's, it's, I'm trying to think about where the money went when it comes to this project. And honestly, I think it was just with maybe the talent, obviously with Ludwig and cinematographer and the talent on board and stuff like that. There is a little bit of CGI here, but I thought he kept the budget pretty much under wraps. This feels like a blockbuster, but obviously we don't have the usual blockbuster budget.
Yeah, I mean, it's 90 million. It was $90 million. I think they said they spent like 68 million shooting on location. I don't know. I think like there's a lot of fuss being made about this budget, and it's like, why? We can spend $250 million on bullshit. So like, why not? And I guess the concern is, you know, is there a market for this? What does that market look like? Um, But again, they don't think about that when they're giving out $200 million. So why are you so worried about it now? Especially when it looks like this is going to perform. I mean, I think it'll make at least $45 million. And it's also like, I don't want to talk too much about money because I think people get so caught up in that, and it's just like it
Very true.
doesn't actually matter. The movie is what it is. But
I think it matters for future projects. Like I think everyone wants this to do well and wants to look at the box office just because we know studios and we know how they work, and we might not get something as good as this. It might be harder to get something as good as this in the future if, for some reason, it doesn't do well. But it looks like it's going to.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not going to like flop. But yeah, I mean, there was people saying like there was a report this has to make $300 million to break even, which is just a lie. um, there's been some weird stuff about how it's been framed.
I've always said like 2 times the budget. So I would round it up to like 100 million and then like multiply that by two. Maybe he has to do over 200 million to break even. That's what I would say. Obviously, you got to factor in some marketing there as well. But I think also, which is really cool, the fact that it is projected to do so well. And I think maybe what scared studios away from it at first is the fact that it is a horror movie, which is kind of cool that maybe people weren't expecting that from Coogler based on his other films. But him coming out and saying, yeah, Dawn of the Dead, The Thing, like these are the movies that inspire this. Like I love horror films. The fact that it is projected to do so well is really impressive because horror films do make a lot of money based on their budget, but that's because they're like two, three, $4 million. So there's never really been, I can't think of in the recent past besides Nope, like a blockbuster horror film. And I love the genre. I think you can explore the genre more than it's been explored. I think there's always room for adaptations. I mean, my brother put out a review of this movie and he just said, hey, look at this. Vampire movies have been done timeless. Like there's hundreds and hundreds of vampire movies, more than likely, but still, we've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, and I mean, they said their break even point is 185 million at the high end, so like they can easily do that. I feel like word of mouth will be good for this, but yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it succeeds, and I think like it seems to be heading that way, and I hope this gets a decent run in the theater. Like this is one where I think seeing it like in the theater and or seeing it in IMAX is like actually important, um, and worthwhile. So I would encourage people to do that.
Yeah. So the reception that this has gotten, and if anybody wants to like go straight to our review, which we're about to get to, we'll put like the timestamp down below where you can get that, where you can go straight to that. But the reception has been kind of remarkable, I will say. It's been a long time since I've seen a film have this much success when it comes to word of mouth. Critics, audiences, I haven't seen a single person. Like even there's some critics who you're like, man, I know they're not gonna like this because they're just that kind of person. Like the I just saw the critical drinker like like this movie. I just saw that on Twitter. Do not follow the guy, don't worry. But I'm just like everyone's like, man, this is something really special. And I think it's also the fact that Coogler has just championed it so much. Like I see him, I've seen constant videos of him just going to random theaters where there's not like a whole lot of people there. And he's just showing up and like, hey man, thanks y'all for coming in here. So I don't know. It just feels like maybe since Oppenheimer and Barbie, this much praise and hype behind a film. Even Doom Part 2, I feel like wasn't this, I don't know, universally loved. It's tough to
I don't know
say.
about that.
It's tough to say. I don't know. I don't know. Like I think a lot of people I haven't seen a single person say, and I did see this because we're, chronically online, unfortunately. Like it's overrated. Everyone knew they were gonna love Doom Part 2, but I just think this was such a surprise, which I feel like makes it more special. Like you had Dune, right? And then you had Doom Part 2. So you really knew the feeling of it. Even with Coogler's other films, like really nobody knew what they were getting into, especially with the trailers. Like I think the music aspect, and we'll get into it, was a big surprise how much that was involved in the whole entire thing. So there's still surprises, even though you felt like you were prepared for it, which is just astonishing to me.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like I mean when you're dealing with a genre that's kind of been done to death or like a subject matter that's been no pun intended like done repeatedly, I think you have to have something that sets your movie apart for people to remember it. So I think that's the angle they decided to take, and it definitely works not only to be entertaining but also thematically as well.
Yeah, there is a lot here to unpack. I mean, I gave a little simple definition of the story earlier about twins and vampires and a period piece, but you've shared your thoughts. You watched it not too long before me. I think you watched it on Sunday, last Sunday. Is that correct? I was waiting,
Sure.
man.
I
I
don't
know.
even remember.
You know
I
what?
think it was. I think it
I
was
rem-
Sunday
I
or
remember
Monday.
because we recorded. We recorded, and after we got done recording, I had to ask you what you thought of it. So it was last Sunday.
Yeah.
But I know you shared your thoughts before, but here again, I mean, what did you think of Sinners? I'll give my thoughts after yours, but I don't know. Will this be your maybe? This is not your most favorite film of the year, right?
No, I mean, I gave it a 4.5. Like, I wouldn't say it's like perfect, but probably the most enjoyable time I had, like, in terms of the experience. Um, I saw this in a huge theater on an IMAX screen. Everyone there really, really enjoyed it, and I think had a great time. But yeah, I think Michael B. Jordan. I guess to try to get into it a little bit. I think that the opening scene where you meet Smoke and Stack, I think it felt a little wonky in terms of having two of him on the screen. That was the only time I noticed that in the entire thing, and I don't know if that was, my brain adjusting to seeing it or if something was different there. That scene, it felt a little strange while they were like around the car and all, but um, after that, I feel like you kind of just forget what you're seeing, which is really cool. And I don't even know from a technical standpoint the how you go about even doing that.
I mean, being
Um,
such a lover of the Social Network, I believe what they do is they just have a body doubled with them there the entire time, and then they place. So basically, there's one Michael B. Jordan, and he's interacting with a body doubled, same build as him, and then basically they make Michael B. Jordan do the exact same thing that body double did, and they just take his face and they copy and paste it on the actor that was
it's a lot
exchanging,
of
I
work,
guess, a
but
cigarette with him.
yeah, it's a lot of work, and I think it would probably be pretty easy to have a misstep there and make it look wonky. But I think most of the movie it looked great. Um, and I just think the strength of Sinners is not necessarily in the vampire element or the supernatural element, but it's everything that leads up to that. Um, and I mean, you said you haven't seen. I have seen a couple people critique this a bit harder,
Mm.
and some
I
people
will
are.
say I saw that people thought the beginning was boring, like the first hour, which you're about to speak on.
Yeah, I think that's been a complaint, which I just like. I don't really understand. Like if you can't appreciate that, um, I'm just not really sure what you're looking at. Like I think what a lot of people have said is part of a praise, and what I said was that part is crucial to have any kind of attachment to anyone or any kind of feeling in the story moving moving forward. But it's also, um, what the story is actually about is being dealt with in that first hour. Like it's. I thought it was really impressive, kind of watching the community recognized that these guys, had made something of themselves and were able to, just own a business, like how big of a deal that was and how the entire community like came together to like support them, not only just to go and party there, but like it felt like they were all kind of mobilizing to like get behind the business and all like pitch in a different way and like um just the amount of work that was required just to have a little something that would could be their own in this, you know, place and time where a lot of people viewed black people like animals, like essentially. Um, I just think that was powerful and I enjoyed seeing it. And I think like, you get a feel that Smoke and Stack are like, probably have done some bad stuff, working for Al Capone, but they also, were veterans and they were in World War I and like, they spent a lot of time working for other people, whether it was the US government or a mobster, whatever, and they were finally having a chance to like do what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it. Um, but I mean, all that aside, Michael B. Jordan was great. I think Miles Caton is just the star
Star,
of the movie.
star. Is that what? Yeah, 100%.
Um, and I mean, he was 19 when he auditioned for this. He hasn't acted before.
I saw that he was like a background singer for her, the R&B artist her, which I love her, but
Yeah, he's done a good amount of work. I want to say he went on tour. He went on tour with her.
yeah.
Um, I'm just not quite sure how you just step into this and are acting across from Michael B. Jordan and just he felt like a veteran actor.
You felt like the like everyone had the reaction when he was playing the music. It's funny, like the reaction that the cousins, right, had to Miles or to Preacher Boy. They're like, "Damn, like who is this kid?" Kind of like everyone, like the audience had that same feeling.
Yeah, I mean that was real. I mean they were actually hearing him play there, and like that was just how they reacted. Um, and I thought that scene is so good with Delroy Lindo and Miles and Michael in the car. Um, and I feel like that moment, like Delroy is telling that story about
It's
his
getting overshadowed.
buddies.
Like people aren't talking about that. That's such a good scene with Delroy.
Yeah, and it's like it's so painful to him that he just starts singing. Like I don't know. I think that scene kind of sums up like a lot of what the movie has to say. But I also like that, and I'm talking too long. I'll say this and let you talk. But I think what I liked about the movie was it doesn't necessarily like it acknowledges all of the like the environment and how terrible it was, but it doesn't like it's not lingering on like black folks like being in pain and abused and treated like shit. Like it's choosing to more so be like a celebration that also um acknowledges the struggle and like hardship, but it's more so focused on positivity and them like creating something awesome and like their music and like I think we're so used to just, seeing movies where it's just and not saying they're not worthwhile, but like it doesn't all have to be like oppressively sad. And like I'm sure a lot of black folks are tired of seeing that. Like, I mean, I know people that have said that over and over again. So like we don't need to always be, you know, in that scenario. I think it's a very joyful movie, and I think that's one of the reasons it's getting such a positive reaction. So
I get what you're saying. I mean, it's the fact that this is 1930s Mississippi. You cannot erase the racism of the environment, but it's the fact that no character arc of any of these people are revolve around that oppression. It's there, and they discuss it kind of nonchalantly. They're like, "Yeah, we know." The way that the white man at the very beginning like sells them the barn or the juke joint, just how he's interacting with them. You're like, okay, we know something's going on here. But yeah, with Smoke and Stack, they both have personal connections with women. And you have Preacher Boy who is trying to find out whether he wants to do this music for a living. Should he follow his father, the pastor, and listen to him? These troublesome cousins, that do they really have his best interest at heart? They've probably done some bad things, but do they really want him to just follow his heart and his gift and everything like that? So I get what you're saying. And I just want to tell anybody who's listening right now, I think this is just kind of like, we say this is Sinner's Review, and I think it's so boring to just be like, yeah, it was a good movie. I feel like we should have like a discussion. I feel like that's what we're having right here. And I wanted to ask you, when it comes to Smoke and Stack, what do you think was their motive for buying the juke joint in the first place? Do you think it was because they look and seem, and they've done a lot of stuff like businessmen, right? Like maybe they know how to run a business, but in my eyes, I think they more so did it like they've seen the world and they came back to Delta. And I think it's because they're just trying to give back to the community. And they realize that they have the status and the funds kind of to do that. Or do you think they were trying to just possibly make a profit? I mean, there is one scene, there's going to be some spoilers in this discussion, but there is that one scene where Smoke's like, hey, we need to watch it, right? What we're doing. We can't give out freebies to these people. How do you take like what their motive was behind just buying the place?
I think it's a mix of what you're talking about.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think like, you know, on one hand, it is a place that everyone can come together and celebrate and be joyful, and also the community can kind of be a part of. But at the same time, like for that to exist, right, it has to be a financially viable business. Like any business venture you go into, you have to. You can have the best intentions in the world if you run it like shit. It's not going to stick around to do whatever it is you intended.
That
So I
makes
think
sense.
like even a lot of organizations in the world that do a lot of good, like a lot of them, they are still making money. People have to be employed and be able to eat, and that's just kind of how it goes. But I think it's a mix of those two things that you mentioned.
I got you. Did you see what Coogler almost named this movie? Did you see that floating around?
No.
Video of him. This is true. He said he almost named it grilled cheese because basically he thought what he had crafted, like he had done like superhero stuff in a sports movie and, Fruitvale Station, but he felt like what was in this movie, like the drama, the music, the horror aspect of it, the entertainment of it, he felt like that's something that everyone can love. And I think his reasoning was what is like he was crafting something, right? He was making something. He's like, what is that kind of item that just everyone loves and it's just always really solid? And he said grilled cheese. Now, I'm happy he didn't go with that. Also, I think the studio is happy he didn't go with that. I feel like that would have been really hard to market. But what he did decide on the title, Sinners, what do you think that means? I haven't seen him really talk about it that much. And it's very interesting because we talked about it. Smoke and Stack have done some wrong. You can tell that they've maybe killed some people in the past or been very shady. I mean, I think they have maybe cigarettes and alcohol that they've stolen from the Irish and other people as well. So, do you think that that title applies to mostly everybody in the juke joint, maybe the vampires? And if so, what does that mean for the conclusion of the story for these sinners? I
Um.
know I just sprung that on you. I know that's deep. I mean, it might just be, we're all sinners kind of a thing. We're not that much different from one another.
Yeah.
It's part of who we are.
I would say. I mean, for the first thing I would say is in relation to like the stealing and stuff. I think how they presented it was they were stealing from the mafia and the Irish mob in Chicago at the
Gotcha.
same time and positioning it so that they would think that they were stealing from each other, and then
That's true. That's true. I remember that.
um yeah. I mean, I don't think it's too deep. I think it's just there's a lot of sinning going on in this movie. Like it's very
Dude, this movie's sexy. Like I was not expecting someone to go down on someone in this. And I don't know why, because it feels like a blockbuster, and you really don't see that in modern day blockbusters. And I'm like, damn. And then obviously we've seen a lot of people reference what Haley Steinfeld says and does in this. And I'm just like, man, Coogler's he's going for it. He's having fun.
I think like I mean I don't know. I find, and people have a lot of different opinions on this. I understand that. I think all the like purity stuff around movies is like a little bit overdone. Like I think if you, I mean, if you have a movie that,
It's rated R. Go for it.
yeah, and if you have a movie that like tonally is doing one thing, or maybe like it feels a certain way, and then you just like toss in a scene that's like only there like to maybe like exploit an actor, or someone just like takes their shirt off for no reason and like it feels forced. Like I understand that. Like you don't want to like objectify like actors, male, women, whatever. But like when it tonally works and when it thematically works, I mean, um there's a sex scene with Annie Wunmi Masaku. She was awesome in this, and
Yes.
and Smoke. And like I thought that was awesome. Like I feel like they had a really good connection in the movie. That was important, like to it emotionally. And I think like it also can be used like for humor, like it is with Sammy and Pearline, who's Jamie Lawson, who's also great. Like that was a funny scene.
Oh yeah, it's because they're listening outside the door. That's good. Who is it? Like Stack walks up because that's the thing with Michael B. Jordan's performance too. I think is great. Is Smoke and Stack are very different characters, and it's funny too.
I wouldn't say I feel like they're different enough. Like I feel like they feel
Hmm.
like I was listening to someone talk about this. I can't remember who it was, but like the simple thing to do would be to make them just like so different, like
Mm.
opposites. So like you clearly know that's Smoke, that's Stack. Like, do you feel like you're watching people that like grew up together, have the same kind of mannerisms, way of speaking, etc., but like there are subtle differences in their personality, which is more
Mm.
real, rather than just like Smoke's the good one and
Yeah.
Stack's the bad one. It's just like that's so stupid. Like
What I
it's
thought of
not.
is that they have similar values, the same values, but they have different motives.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely a little bit different personalities,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of perfectly reflected with kind of like what happens in the movie. Um, I don't know how much we want to go into spoiler stuff, but I think it worked for given their personalities.
I mean, we can spoil the music. Ludwig. I mean, I went back afterwards. I forgot. I think you posted that video about his career and his connection to Coogler. So he's scored every single one of Coogler's films.
Yeah,
That's just
from his
insane, man.
like shorts, yeah, from back then.
And they were college roommates at USC, right?
I don't know that they were roommates, but that's where they met each other
They
in
met each other at USC.
2007. And
Dude, just
they're like best friends.
how different this is than Oppenheimer, because that's crazy. I mean, he's been doing this for a long time, and the Black Panther and Wakanda Forever soundtracks and scores did get some attention, but obviously Oppenheimer is the one where we're like, who is this guy?
I mean,
Is it?
he won an Oscar for Black Panther. I would say that score is really
Oh, he did
important.
as well. I did
Yeah,
not remember that.
that
Okay,
was his first Oscar. Yeah.
okay, I got you. But even so, a second Oscar. That I mean, right there, you can see my personal experience. The fact that I knew him after Oppenheimer, and I listened to that score. I don't listen to a whole lot of scores, but I do listen to that one pretty frequently, and so does my wife. But is this the first movie that he scored after that?
After Oppenheimer,
Yeah. That
that I don't know. I can look it up.
okay. If that is the case, man, how different are these? Because I mean, I don't want to bash him. I'm not bashing this man if anybody's listening. But when you listen to what Hans Zimmer does, they sound alike sometimes. And I mean, I'm sure Ludwig's his sound alike in the past as well. But just in my mind, what I'm thinking right now between Oppenheimer and this movie, I mean, it's tonally what both of them are trying to go for is completely different. But the fact that he can nail both films, a horror movie and a biopic, is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was more. I mean, there's also the argument that Oppenheimer was a bit of a horror movie, and I think you see some of that in the score in the second and third acts,
Mm.
which is specifically the second. I think that's like what they really were going for, but um, he also was, I believe, yeah, he was an executive producer on this as well because Coogler started his production company, Proximity Media, and Ludwig is his partner in that, which is awesome. So they're going to be together for the next, I don't know, 20 years making movies, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Also, it was Oppenheimer, then Sinners, then he has the Odyssey. So he's just,
pretty good track record there.
yeah. I mentioned in my video, but he has two Oscars already. Very few composers have two Oscars. Hans Zimmer has two Oscars. There's a few people with three, a few with four.
You said
And I
John
think
Williams has
Alfred
six, right?
Newman. What did you say?
I think you said John Williams has six, right?
No, he only has five,
Oh, okay.
or it's four or five, and he
Okay,
has he has had 49 nominations.
okay.
Which, like, when you think about it, it's a pretty bad ratio. But I think Alfred Newman, I think, has nine. But like that kind of feels within reach. If he works another, you know, he'll pass John Williams, I think. But and again, that doesn't actually matter. I just think it is hard to win. And he's just doing stuff that really stands out. But I think like his friendship with Coogler was kind of evident here, and I talked about it in my video. But his father was a huge fan of the blues, despite being Swedish and rock and roll. Um, and I think you can tell like this was kind of a passion project for him as well, which is cool because like he's just like long haired Swedish guy. Like he was like he's just like and he's making this incredible music for this movie.
The Southern United States films of the 1930s.
Yeah, but he just crushed it, and I think um also shout out to his wife, Serena, I think her name is. Coogler and Ludwig wanted her to produce all this. She's a violinist. She's really talented. Her violin was all over Oppenheimer, but she produced all the music. And just, I mean, it like having all these actors that can sing, like
So Miles, I mean, I know that everyone can sing. I know that also we haven't spoken about him yet, but I was going to talk about the two scenes with Ludwig's music as the obviously the juke joint and what happens when Preacher Boy Sammy, steps up and he finally plays his music and Miles Catton's voice is to me, I don't know if you know the artist Aloe Black. That's kind of what he sounds like to me, but you even said it in your review. His speaking voice even is that can conjure up some vampires as well. But I saw recently that Jack O'Connell, he actually was doing, it's crazy, dude, because you see that scene, which you mentioned it in your review. I try not to watch your reviews until I see the movie, but man, I really wanted to know your thoughts on this before I went. And you mentioned this, and I saw rumors of that scene, and I thought that was it, right? But then it's kind of like a good versus evil, like these are our battle cries kind of a thing.
a response. It's very funny.
Yeah, it was fucking sick is what it was. And they do like a little Irish jig back there, and you can see everyone just like dancing in the back. That was cool too. I felt spoiled, man. I felt spoiled in the movies.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I mean, I talked about it a bit, but I think like it felt very purposeful, and I think it is a shame. I mean, I'm half Irish. I'm very proud of my Irish heritage, but like a lot of the folks that ended up settling in the South and were Irish and Scots, and a lot of them were so fucking racist, and like a lot of the Klan came out, from those folks, and like it's unfortunate, but that's reality. I thought it was very interesting having, you know, him be Irish. I thought that was pretty poignant, but like also, I
the
mean,
music, the
they
music styles are like completely very similar as well, right?
yeah, and a lot. I mean, it's funny because the country music was born out of Irish music. Like that is it's what it came from. Um, which is a whole other conversation. But it, you know, Jack O'Connell was he can really sing too. And
Which I saw
they
that
did
he's that from that one what's that one UK show that people talk about all the time. I saw this tweet right before we jumped on, but it's one that Nicholas Holt
skins.
Skins, yes, Nicholas Holt, Dev Patel, like all these guys are from. I'm like, damn. I gotta watch it.
Yeah, he was good, and like they did a Go Lassie Go. That was awesome. They were just but it was also like very. It was kind of tongue in cheek too. It was very bizarre.
Yeah. I
But
saw
I mean,
too. I don't know if you saw this. Sorry for interrupting. I don't know if you saw this or not, but he's actually, what movie he's going to be in next?
I don't
I don't know if
remember.
it was floating around there, but he's actually being a cult leader in 28 years later.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be good.
That'll be good too.
Yeah, but he sings, Miles sings, Jamie sings, Delroy Lindo sings, um, and they all just and everyone has a very unique voice.
Mhm.
Delroy Lindo was very very fucking funny in this. I can't get over how funny he was. We given a lot of praise. One, uh, the husband of the shop owner, the Korean woman, Bo Chow, was played by someone named Yao. I don't know who that is. I did not think he was very good at acting.
Mm. Interesting.
Um, and Lee Jun Lee was his wife. I thought she was fun. I mean, it's more so like her character was so frustrating,
Yeah.
like shit that she did. Um,
Compared to all the other characters too, they did have one thing going for them, and that was their daughter. I thought maybe they needed maybe just a tiny bit more development than that, in my opinion.
yeah, I would agree. I mean, you got the
I didn't
feeling
really
that
feel
like
the connection between the two, and that's like what drives the whole conflict at the very end, right? It's the fact
yeah.
that she blurts it out, and I was in like, man, these two are a match made in heaven, and they're just head over heels in love. So when she's just like, fuck everybody, we're all gonna die. I didn't think that was warranted.
I I hear you, but I also like I kind of got it. Like she's in a position where her husband is gone, and like that's her entire life. It's also she's a
Also, she was trying to protect her daughter. I forgot about that. So
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
also another reason why she's
she's
there.
like a minority woman in the South in 1930, and like her husband's gone, her daughter is now in danger, imminent danger. Like, I understand, and I think rationality wouldn't necessarily come to the forefront there, but it was definitely frustrating. Some people in the theater were yelling at her, but
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the whole like Star-Lord thing where they're like, we almost got him, and then it's like someone just
dude,
like,
don't get me started on that fucking scene. That scene is ridiculous. That scene is preposterously dumb. I hate that scene so much. That to me makes no sense. And
mm.
I hate Star Lord so much. He's just a clown.
Speaking of frustrations, this is not really a frustration, but I'm just curious, and I'm surprised I've seen no one talk about this. And I'm going to make a video about it today to promote this episode. But and this will wrap up our conversation. I feel like it was a good way to wrap it up. There's end credit scenes here. There's two end credit scenes. The last one, which comes at the very end of the credits, is not as important as the other one. It's just Miles singing yet again "This Little Light of Mine," which is why I hummed it at the beginning of this episode, and you did not join me, which is fine. But I'm always happy to hear him sing again. I've listened to him many, many times after I saw the movie. But it's the other end credit scene, the mid credit scene, I would call, not even mid credits. There is like a bit, I think Coogler's name shows, maybe Michael B. Jordan's name shows, like 4 or 5 people's names show. And then you have another scene. And it's interchanging between some credits and the scene, but eventually it goes straight into the scene, if I remember correctly. And it's Sammy all grown up. And you see the fact that Stack, and it's so funny. I feel like everyone's calling Smoke and Stack, but then everyone's just calling Haley Steinfeld's character Haley Steinfeld. And I can't remember what her name was. But it's the fact that this takes place. It's such an important pivotal moment where we see older Sammy is at a bar and you realize that Stack and vampire turned Haley Steinfeld are still alive. And you're kind of, hesitant towards them as they walk up. They're in 90s garb now, as it is like in the future. And they're basically reflecting on that night at the juke joint. And they're asking Sammy if, his life is coming to an end, he's getting older, if he would want to turn. And I think it is so powerful to know that he is just content with dying. I think that is so powerful and something that you wouldn't really, it's something really good to see in a vampire movie. But I think it's such an important emotional moment too between Haley Steinfeld and Stack at that moment, because even they were like, that was the happiest I ever been because it was the last moment I had with my brother. So I feel like that is such a very important moment of the movie that felt very necessary, but it's in the credits, and I don't know why. I don't know. I've thought about it forever. I've tried to look up stuff. I don't know.
I think just to say that there's a mid credit scene, like to give people that extra, like it sets it apart. Like it makes it a little bit more exciting. Like people have been trained to like look for that and to get excited about it, and this and like that's all it is, I think. But it really is just a continuation of the movie. Like it's the last scene in the movie. So I agree with you in that element, but that's the only reason they did that. It's just to like make it a little more hype, I think.
Basically, they just frame it that way just to
Yeah, it's
build
an
the hype even
epilogue,
more.
but I think
Okay.
it's just to make it more exciting, and then it's just like, oh,
Maybe it's
stick
also
around.
they had
There's a
that thing with
credit
Miles
scene
at the
coming
very
up.
end too. So if we put a scene in the very middle of the credits, maybe people will stick around till the very end and then they'll see that as well. That could be a reason why. I thought it was funny that he had that though, and he's like been Marvel pilled. He's like, no, just for fun, we'll do some mid credit scenes. Maybe all my Marvel heads will stick around.
Yeah, and also I just wanted to call out that's Buddy Guy at the end of
Yes,
the
yes,
film. The very famous blues musician. So
yes.
that was cool. I mean, the movie has a lot of respect for the music, and I think that was pretty evident.
Yeah, so I think it's also pretty evident that me and you really both we both like this movie.
Yeah.
4.5 out of 5 for me as well. I think that the only one critique I'll say is I was let down by the whole um, Sammy playing the music and the lore behind that. I thought it was going to come back, and it wasn't as fleshed out as it should have been for being the opening of the film. They put a lot of emphasis into the fact that Sammy has this gift, this power, right? And then you're waiting for a scene like that, and you get one, but maybe it was purposely to subvert your expectations. I think maybe, you think maybe he's going to play the guitar at the very end, and he doesn't, and he actually uses it as a weapon. That was pretty. I wasn't expecting that, but I don't know. I wish they would have dived even more into the supernatural rather than just vampires. But yeah, I mean, we both have the same rating on this film, which is expected and cool. But we need people to go and see it, obviously, though. Original movie. I mean, we talked about it. I think it's going to have a big opening weekend. We'll see. I'm guessing right now, 52 million. That's my guess for domestic opening weekend.
I'll say 49.
49. You know what's sad? You know what's cool too is that we've seen, I think, recently with Bad Boys, I think it was Ride or Die, when the black community gets a film, like they go and watch it and they support it, and it makes money. So,
Yep.
and that's what Hollywood cares about, and that's what they deserve, right? That community, and I'm excited. Hopefully, the turnout will be the same. I'm just disappointed, and I was listening to a podcast talk about this. It's not the same internationally, which is a bummer. Black stories are just not a draw when it comes to that. So we really need people. And I'm assuming most of our people who are listening to us are in the United States to go and watch the film. But
yeah, because I mean, it's very much. I mean,
it's very much an American.
It's about the American Black experience.
Yes.
So like, I think it's very on top of that, it's like a sexy gothic horror story. Like it's very like it is risky. Like it's very niche. Like and I think that was maybe the concern from the studio. But also we didn't talk about it. Ryan Coogler fought them to get control of this starting in 2050, which is awesome. And the studio's pissing their pants about that. And I think that is what has driven a lot of the bullshit that's dribbled out about this movie is just them being salty. So shout out to Ryan Coogler.
Shout out Ryan Coogler. Thanks for listening to the episode. If you have gotten this far, my man, we love your stuff. Give us a call. We have an email, goodwillpodcasting@gmail.com that you can tune in. But yeah, anybody who hasn't seen Sinners yet, go and form your own opinion. Maybe you won't like it. Maybe you'll be one of the very, very, very few not to. And if so, and you didn't like it, tell us why in the comments. But yeah, until the next time we see you down the road with another movie, be safe. We'll see you then.